times in his rhymes cause his memories. We running through New York so you never leave. Strap my lungs then we puffin' through with that right. But giving them some stories they come back like manic this, manic that, why you crawling to me? The hell we gonna...
Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going over the S85 rough running symptoms, misfires and vacuum leaks on this engine. Now many of you guys know this car suffers with this basically on a weekly period. Something will always break and therefore you'll constantly have vacuum leaks. But today I'm going to show you where to look and what will cause them, and then where to get to them if it does fail, and where to check straight away if you come up with the symptoms as you're driving or when you first start up cold from the morning. So let's get onto it and I'm going to show you where to look for all the symptoms. Okay guys, so as you'll see here, this is the S85 engine, and if you are looking at this engine and you've got the S65, it will be the same for you as well. So as many of you guys know, these cars like to start having a lot of problems as they get to around 70k, 80k, and these cars end up with a lot of vacuum leaks and a lot of the stuff needs overhauling on them, and a lot of you don't know where to look because the engine's so big that you probably can't find the issues. So I'm going to explain to you where all the issues are. So the first one you'll see is this pipe right here going into the airbox. This is the vacuum pipe for the air which goes onto the airbox, and that you need to make sure ain't leaking or isn't cracked. As you see, this has been renewed and it's quite new. Obviously this pulls air from the scoops, if you'll see down here on the bumper, from down there up here into the airbox and into the plenum right here which goes to the throttle bodies. Now if this cracks you will be running rough, so make sure and be aware of that to check that one. The next one is underneath the plenum. There's two vacuum lines that come off the plenum. Now a lot of people when they take this plenum off end up cracking them both, and they're both here, and when you lift the plenum up you've got to disconnect them. They can easily break because of the heat underneath the engine. They usually stay in the middle of the chambers, but they can break and have broken before, and it's something I would advise to check for, because obviously again they control the amount of air going into the plenum, so if they're cracked you'll end up with a rough idle as well and rough running codes. The next one on these is over the back here as well. Behind the plenum there's another two vacuum lines that disconnect, and you'll see that if you got to them. Again, they become brittle and break because they're right close to the bulkhead, so they suffer with a lot of heat. They're quite hard, but the clips do break on them, so you've got to be careful when you take them out as well. But they will cause you to run rough as well if they're broken, so make sure to look for them. The next one I want to talk about on this is the throttle actuators. Now your throttle actuators are gear driven and they're electronic. When the gears start to stop up and your actuators start to lose all the stops, and the stops ain't working properly, they will cause rough running as well, because the DME is trying to hold the throttle open, but the throttle actuators are not working properly. The cogs that are sticking or they're not functioning properly, so therefore you'll get an unbalanced idle, and obviously you'll feel no power on your accelerator as well. The throttle actuators are a common issue, everyone knows about them, but they do the same thing. They respond back with a DME. They'll cause rough running if they're not working correctly, because they used to hold the idle when the car first starts and to also balance out the idle, so make sure about them as well. Don't think they're just perfectly okay because you've got no codes. Run a test of Vista and it'll tell you if they're actually okay, and then it will end up throwing you up a code for bank 1 or bank 2 like it does when you run the test. But be careful and make sure you check them, because they will cause rough running symptoms, rough idle symptoms at idle, so make sure you check that. So the next one for the rough running symptoms will be your CCVs are right here. Now if many of you guys don't know, the CCV is built onto the plenums, so you'll need to buy whole new plenums to replace that, but they have got little valves that you can replace, and you can end up shaking them to see if they're blocked full of oil. One sits right here and it's down here on this pipe behind the plenum itself, and you've also got the other one that sits around the back here. Now when they block up, they're throwing oil into the manifold, which can also cause you rough running because it's dumping too much oil into the plenums, which in turn is returning too much oil into here and dumping it into the throttle body, so it ain't a good sign. So make sure you check them, because they can get blocked and cause rough running as well if they are blocked up or stopped up from oil, and that's usually if the oil hasn't been changed. That's something that will need to be changed as well. They're very cheap to buy, so don't try and skimp out on them. There you can get them anyway, even from the main dealer, I think for like £90 for both of them, but they are worth it to just overhaul them, because they could be causing you rough running symptoms as well. The next one on these guys is the ignition coils, which is down here on the cover. You'll see right down here, that's the cover for the ignition coils. Now there's 10 of them on this side and on this side. Now they like to fail. On this car we had 4, 6, 8 and 10 all replaced, but a lot of them do fail on it, and you've got to be careful about that. They all will fail, and when they fail they will cause misfire, and you will feel it on this engine. A lot of people say you won't feel it because it's a V10, but trust me, you do. So make sure to be careful with that as well, to make sure you change all your ignition coils. They don't end up throwing a code straight away, so it can cause a lot of problems. The next one I want to speak to you guys about is the fuel tank in the boot. You would have seen in my video where I replaced the fuel filter. Now that's got a regulator on it, and there's also, it can cause a lot of rough running at the high RPM. You'll lose power. It's something I just want to speak to you guys about. You would have seen in my video, this car suffered with that issue, and I repaired it. The regulator on the fuel filter was completely knackered, and it was causing this car to lose power at the hot top end. Also, a fuse was blown because that filter had failed, so it was causing this car to lose top end power. The next one on these guys is the Vanos solenoids, which sit right down here as well. On them, a lot of people are under the belief that they don't fail. They do fail, and if you run a system test on this car, many garages won't do that, and that's why they'll say they're perfectly fine because they're not throwing a code. The test will tell you that they're not okay. Now, they're not bad, but they're not perfect either, and when you change the O-rings on them, which is something you will see on my video as well coming up, that I'm going to be changing the O-rings on the Vanos solenoids, it makes a lot of difference. And I'm going to run the system test before so you guys can see what they were before and what they were after. Now you'll probably get the valve quality and valve quality check. You can run all these tests with ISTA and check if your Vanos solenoids are good, but you must change the O-rings on them to restore the power on these. This is one thing that ended up failing. The O-rings go flat, and because of the heat, and they give you upgraded ones that you never have to change again, that can withstand the heat on this engine. But the ones from BMW cannot withstand it, and they end up failing and causing you to lose low down power. Once you change them, you experience a whole world of different power from this engine once the O-rings have been changed. The next one on these is the MAF sensors. Now these are the MAF sensors right here, and it uses two, one for each airbox. As many of you guys know, they're a common problem. They like to fail as well. The other day I had a MAF sensor code, and I checked it out and it didn't come back. I don't think the MAF sensors were knackered. I think it was because this wasn't plugged in correctly, so I plugged that back in and it seems to be okay now. But they like to fail as well. You guys in the US will already know that they're a common issue for failing. Just make sure you check them out. Again, you can check with Vistin. You can run the tests on them to make sure they're actually responding, they're getting signal properly. So that's one thing. Like I say, if you do own this car, I do recommend you to have ISTA, just because of that reason, that you'll be able to check all these things. The next one on these is the injectors. They like to fail as well. The injectors are right here. They use 10 injectors, and they're right down there on that rail, and you'll see them down here on this rail as well. Now when you get the plenum up, they're very easy to access, and you can get to the wiring, get to the injectors very easy. They do like to fail. There's 10 of them, but they're not expensive. They're funny enough, they actually use the M52 injectors, so you'll be able to just switch them over with them injectors as well. So it's not that hard to change them over, but they do cause misfires, and if they're not fueling the cylinder enough, they will cut off the cylinder as well. So that's why if you get a misfire code, you need to make sure it's not the coil, not the injector, because it could also be the coil. So that's why you need to be careful when you change it. It can also be a spark plug as well, so make sure you do check that. The next one on these is the plenum itself. Now what a lot of people do is when they take this plenum off, you've got all the vacuum lines, 2 at the back, 2 at the front, which is right here when you lift it up. Now when they go to put this back down, they end up catching the boot where it goes onto the throttle body. Now my best thing is to put grease on the boots when you're putting the plenum back on the engine, and lower it back onto the throttle bodies, because what a lot of people do is just push it back on, don't check it, and the boot ends up getting stuck and it doesn't sit on the throttle body properly, and then you lose it, you cause an air leak. Then you have all the rough running symptoms, because you've got to remember, this car uses a lot of different sensors, especially the camshaft sensors, the Vanos solenoids, everything's sensored up. Even the throttle actuators. Therefore, if something's causing an air leak, it will throw this whole engine out of balance. So you've got to make sure you sit this plenum back correctly when you take it off. It's not a hard job, as I say. Once you get it off, it's very easy to get off. Make sure you use grease, or like a very clear grease, just a bit, or even WD-40, to lower it back on properly onto the throttle body, so they don't get stuck or the boot don't get jammed, because otherwise you'll have to then source a new boot, because it ends up getting crunched up and you won't be able to pull it on properly. So just make sure you take this plenum off properly the first time, and just make sure you reseat it properly as well, to make sure, and that way your car ends up running perfectly and you know you've done everything. Even though the plenum ain't hard to get off, it's the Jubilee clips behind. They're all behind here, and you have to unloosen every single one just to do it, so you don't want to do that and have to get that back off once it's off. So therefore guys, they're the most common rough running symptoms here on this engine. It's mostly all to do with the vacuum lines. Like I said, there's not much else on this engine. You just got to make sure that all the vacuum lines on this engine are all fine. Make sure obviously your plenum's fine, your throttle actuators are fine. The best program I can recommend you is ISTA. ISTA will keep you up to date and let you know if something's failing, let you know what's failing, let you know to replace it if it's failing. Okay guys, so there you have it. I've just gone through with you all the rough running symptoms, misfires and common vacuum leaks on this engine, which is the S85. This also applies for the S65 engine, which is the M3 engine. Like I said, there's a lot of places you have to check on this engine, but as I said, ISTA is your best friend, but it won't tell you where vacuum leaks are. You have to be sure you have ISTA to be able to diagnose this car, but the simplest of things can be checked straight on top of the engine. You guys have to remember this engine come from great engineers, and they thought about this engine before they just shoved it in this car. Everything mostly is on top, so you don't need to go to the bottom, only for the rod bearings and the oil Vanos line. Apart from that, everything is on top, vacuum lines, and the majority of things are very easily accessible on this engine. So just be sure that you make sure you check all the things that we have spoke about, and go and check your car, because you don't need a diagnostic scanner to be able to check that. It's very easy to check for misfires, switch the coils over, and just be able to check that way, or check your spark plugs, because as you guys know, it's a performance car. I would recommend changing them every 60k, and that's the same for the ignition coils. You know, the ignition coils are under high pressure from this engine, so therefore they will fail. Another thing to be aware of is your fuel pumps. Make sure you check them in the rear tank, because they use high pressure fuel pumps, and obviously they're a different one. You cannot use one from the previously 62 and M52 engine on the M5 as many people think. The pumps are set differently, and so is the relays on these. They're set for high pressure, so you've got to be aware of that as well. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. It's BMW Dr. Dean here, and if you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.